One explanation I received from one of the assistants at Weber State is no one is actually arguing in real life for white people to leave. This is an argumentative fiction. It's attempting to imagine a world where black people don't have to deal with whiteness constantly. Whiteness being the idea, this phenomenon in society that kind of results in securitizing life for white people, whatever, right? So all they want to do is they just want they want to imagine a world where whiteness doesn't cause oppression for black people. Now, the difference between saying get rid of all white people and get rid of all black people is that there are actually people who want to get rid of all black people, like the KKK, for example. The debaters here don't actually want to get rid of white people. Another thing about the whiteness argument, it's saying that the argument is saying that white people are already looking to leave the planet, and the poetry assumes they can and have the ability of taking care of themselves. So this argument, it's not saying we should kill white people. It's saying that let them go do what they want, which is go off and explore space. The argument is just saying we should go let them do that. It's not saying we should get rid of them and like kill them all. It's saying like let them live their own lives. We will live ours. That's the argument. I'm not saying I'm support against it or whatever. I'm just explaining it again. Now, Michael makes a point about this argument, saying that like his teammates aren't asking the right questions about this affirmative argument or this AF, like I explained earlier. That doesn't mean you aren't allowed to ask better ones. If you think the questions suck, that's totally your opinion, and you're welcome to ask better ones. I personally don't think anyone asked that good of questions in this audio. If I were in the room, I would have asked something like, what about sending white people to colonize space means that we resolve the sentiments of colorism in Black and Latino and Asian communities? Then they would answer that by saying how if we get rid of whiteness, then we solve all the problems in the world. Then to that, I would, for example, use the argument that Zach Baker was talking about. And I would then ask, okay, so if we can prove that your theorization about whiteness being the root cause of the impacts of the affirmative case, do we win? Got it, right? So that's something I could say. And then, Baker, if he were here in that room, then he would then go on to read the Guadalupe evidence that we talked about earlier, and et cetera, et cetera. Now, on to the conversation of all white people do whatever, do this, that. The all overarching claim, right? So where they say all white people benefit from whiteness, they are speaking from a position that defends the theory, the literature they were talking about. Again, like we proved before, disproving the theory is totally allowed. Michael is allowed to disprove it. Their opponents are allowed to disprove it. Their judges are allowed to vote against them to disprove it. All of this is allowed. Now, Ryan brings up practicality, and he quite literally says that it will lose to arguments made about that. He isn't saying, like, the reason why ethics isn't really a problem here is because everyone understands that this isn't really what they believe in, right? Again, everyone here, at least in the debate room, and not even just at Weber State, but the entire country, all debaters, they are way more concerned with winning than anything else. It's important to notify here or make it clear here that if Michael wanted to be the debater that could dismantle and disprove this argument and prove it wrong and have judges vote against it, he could have, just like Zach Baker was. But he didn't. He quit the debate team to make his video. And I really want to emphasize that point here. He could have became a debater that learned how to dismantle these arguments on the national level, but instead he ran away. That's just kind of indicative of the kind of character he has, especially when he's making up this story about somebody who is actually looking out to help him. And what I mean by somebody looking out to help him, Ryan actually wants Michael to be a good debater. He wants all of his debaters to be good debaters. That's the reason why he's coaching them. For example, here's an instance of him giving Michael an explanation about an argumentation theory.
I'm just still confused why it would flip it to affirmative. Why would presumption stop being
because in traditional argument or traditional, I guess, debate theory, the affirmative has the burden of proof, which means that they are presenting the change. The negative simply has the burden of rejoinder.
Yeah.
However, if the negative then starts to encroach on the burden of proof and offer something separate, then argumentation theory says that then it should flip back to the affirmative because they no longer have to prove that the AF is better than the counter plan. They're only supposed to prove that the AF is better than the status quo. Now it's on the negative to prove that the counter plan or counter methodology is superior to the affirmative, which happens at the level of the linked debate.
Okay.
Not only that, Ryan does not hate white people. He does not hate Michael for being white. I mean, the two debaters I mentioned last year, Zach Baker and his partner, they were both white, and he went out of his way to teach them a lot. And not just arguments like supporting stuff that he supposedly believes in, but arguments that oppose everything that Michael talks about. For example, like one piece of evidence I have that proves that Ryan doesn't hate Michael is he bought him food. It's in the audio recording. Basically, he's ordering Popeyes for the team. He's asking Michael what he wants, and Michael's like, "Oh yeah, chicken."
Where we
So
at?
what I'm worried
Does
about,
that matter?
what I'm worried about is that it's just like, oh, this can
How?
happen, or this can happen, and then like.
What? How many of us are eating chicken? So 2 veggies, just 2 veggies. Ben is good. You said you gonna eat
Chicken. Yeah.
Now I know this seems like such a ridiculous thing to point out, Ryan buying Michael chicken, but it's like if Ryan hated Michael, why would he buy him chicken? Like it's not true, man. What's messed up is that Michael here is recording right in secret during this audio, and I texted Ryan about this event when he bought the Popeyes, and I asked him, did the school pay for that or did he pay for it out of pocket? And Ryan said that it depends. If a restaurant approves of the tax exemption, the school will pay for it. But in this instance, Popeyes did not approve of the tax exemption from the Weber State debate team, so Ryan paid for it out of pocket. So we have here Ryan buying food out of his pocket from Michael, and he's taking advantage of that and is like, huh, thanks for the chicken, but fuck you, I'm gonna make a video to make people think you're racist. I mean, come on, man. You could have at least not asked for chicken. You could have been like, oh, I'm good because I'm gonna post a video about you soon. But no, you let him buy you chicken. That's fucked up, man. Who does that? That's fucked up. Anyways, getting back to the topic at hand. So a lot of point of contestation people have about the whiteness argument is that there's a point where Ryan says, don't take questions from him because he's white. So how do I explain this in the most simplest terms possible without like making it seem like I'm making up bullshit? Earlier I said the affirmative is speaking from a position that defends the theory of anti-blackness. What they are arguing is that they are trying to imagine a world where whiteness does not exist, right? So the reason Ryan tells them not to answer questions, at least in the way that Michael wants, because he's white, it's not because like they hate white people. That's not true. It's because if they answer his questions in the way that he wants, like the whole idea of imagining a world without whiteness gets shattered because it's still there if Michael's like there answering questions. It's more about like them kind of strategically skirting questions that people ask of them to seem more persuasive. This isn't unique to the whiteness argument. Actually, a lot of debaters do this in terms of like skirting questions that people ask them. It's not just race debaters, it's gender debaters, it's critical debaters, it's policy debaters. For example, if I had an argument about escaping the planet due to an impending asteroid coming to destroy the Earth, and someone asked me, if we prove that there's no risk of an asteroid, do we win the debate? I would answer by saying, no, because I will argue that there are several other reasons to vote affirmative and independent of an asteroid. That's that right there. It's kind of skirting like because the way they posed it was a yes or no question, but I turned it into a more of like it's more nuanced than that, which is not the answer that the negative team or the opposing team would want. All debaters do this. They always answer questions in like the most bullshitting way possible, and that's what these debaters are doing here. Again, I'm not defending it. I'm not saying that's right. I'm saying that is just a strategic decision they are making to make themselves seem more persuasive to the judges who will be judging the debate rounds. Now, this is another point that I really want to emphasize about this conversation. The reason Ryan is shutting down Michael during this conversation is because, again, they're in a context where they're all supposed to be proposing their affirmative arguments and have everyone question them, right? what's going on here is Michael is asking way too many questions and taking up space for other people to ask questions. He's asking a question on top of question on top of question when everyone's supposed to take a turn to ask a question. And quite literally in the audio, Ryan says, like when Michael says, "What does it have to do about me?" Ryan says, "What does that have to do with your question about the affirmative?"
Subject anyway.
How would that play out?
How would what
Like
play out?
not letting someone question you because they're white.
I mean, I didn't say you couldn't question me. You just might not get the answers you want.
Like I'm not going to answer you, or what do you mean? So I can't ask you a question because I'm white.
You were asking several questions, and I'm
Right,
answering
but you're
them
saying
all.
you wouldn't answer them because
I'm
of
answering
white.
them all.
You're
I've
answering my
answered
question
every
about your
you've
question.
asked. I've answered every question you asked.
Yeah,
You are
you
not
have.
satisfied. You have not been satisfied. Their evidence, their affirmative is about. It's not really about racism, which deals more with the domestic American thing. What they're talking about is anti-blackness and how the world is structured.
Yeah.
It's a ontological.
My problem,
What's the issue?
if one white person, says something racist to a black person, why am I guilty of that? Why do you treat me as if I did
What
that?
does that have to do with your complaint about the affirmative?
Well, because he.
I'm not about to keep answering these questions. Do you have a question about the F? Do you have a suggestion? It's not your F.
No,
This next point I want to talk about, you can dismiss it if you want. It's going to be my own personal account, but in my encounters with Ryan, I know that he does not treat white debaters in a different way. He may treat Michael in a different way because the way Michael is, but it's not because he's white. It's because Michael is just like a difficult debater to coach. The Ryan I know personally, he has done a lot of really nice things for people. His first year as a coach on the team, not as director, as coach, I wasn't debating there when he was director. We had a Halloween party at his house. His roommate was a white woman, believe it or not. Ryan personally has helped me through a lot of like personal trials, and he goes out of his way to like buy food for the debaters and pay for their travel fees and their hotel room fees and all this stuff. And it's just the fact that I have to make this video is ridiculous.
I'm not really concerned with if he's actually racist. I'm concerned with how he's teaching it to his students.
Even Michael in his own interview says maybe it's the case that Ryan isn't racist, but the stuff he is teaching is racist. So we're going to focus on that fact, right? And we've practically gone over like a majority of the content that he's been teaching, and it's that he doesn't believe it. Sure, you may think that the content is racist. Sure, go ahead. But like, is he defending it? Is he saying that it's right? No, he's presenting them, right? It's all argumentative. It quite literally is devil's advocates type of scenario. He doesn't actually believe these arguments. Now on to the question of the stoicism argument that Michael talks about, that he states that Ryan shuts down, right? So Ryan says it can be a good theory until applied. Again, he personally doesn't have a problem with the philosophy. What he is saying is that in his 10 years of debate experience, what he has seen in debates, he knows that it's just not a strong enough argument and it will lose in debates. My main argument is that Ryan is a debate coach who wants to win, and at best his actions can be brought down to his motivation to win, not for his motivation for black identity narratives. Now, so about the stoicism argument, essentially, yeah, I mean, it says things sucks, get over it. Not only is that, but the way that interpretation is, like the way that Michael makes it, they don't advocate for just addressing oppression. It's also a personal philosophy, not something that you're like, oh, get over yourself. It's obvious why just get over it is not a viable strategy. It's not persuasive. But even given this, here's some audio that Michael doesn't include that will give a ton of context. Ryan, even though he knows this is a crappy argument, he's still giving Michael the benefit of the doubt. He's just letting him know of the dangers ahead.
No other way to respond.
Like, I don't understand the concept. I understand them very well. I don't understand if people will vote for them. I get that you're frustrated with identity and stuff in debate, which is cool. I'm on board with you in regards to that.
I
But
just-
I don't think the response to that can be, well, you can just not be upset about the fact that racism and race.
I think that stoicism's a good philosophy independent of like my problems with identity politics. Like, how come?
Because you haven't made an argument. You just keep saying that people can do stuff with no evidence. Show me something. Show me something.
Well, like this is
Show
just an
me.
idea.
Show-
I'll have to get the cards and stuff, obviously.
you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's.
I was just saying that's an idea of what I could run because you're
Right,
asking me to
yeah,
find.
and I'm responding, I think, in kind to the ideas and giving you my honest assessment on it.
Okay.
The things that I've brought up to you, the examples that I brought up to you, I don't think that you have good answers to those. You don't have good answers to rape. You don't have good answers to racial oppression. You don't have good answers to disability.
Okay.
And these are the things that are popular
So,
right now, that everybody could be able to articulate. And your stoicism, the theory, is not going to get out of the context of that.
So can you just summarize the main things so I can find responses
No,
or
you
think
need to summarize your argument. You need
Okay.
to produce an argument that is well-rounded and backed by evidence
Okay.
in regards to those areas. Those are the things that people are gonna say.
Yeah.
Because they're not even gonna have to defend their app anymore.
Yeah.
They're just gonna be like, your stuff is bad, and here's 20 different examples of why your stuff is bad.
Okay. Yeah, I'll actually like get a proper of it, like evidence and stuff.
The theory starts to fall apart at the level of practicality, hence your silence in this matter.
Okay, well I'll look up evidence specifically about those situations.
Yeah, I'm still gonna say you're gonna have to respond, even if the theory is good, you still have to respond
Well, like,
to what happens in the moment. 'Cause
people-
that's what's gonna be
people
the
can always-
cross-examination.
So we can see from this audio that they have a deep discussion about the way the argument would interact with discussions of rape, racism, and disability. Not that Ryan like says, "Oh, it needs to be about these." It's saying he is quite literally saying that this is the meta of debate right now. This is what other people are going to be running, and you have to be prepared for that. At the end of the audio, he's specifically saying like you need to have studies about this argument. You need to have evidence and answers to all of it. And Michael's saying, "Yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll do research on that." And Ryan's saying, "Okay, yeah, sweet, yeah, do the research." But I'm still telling you, you're not gonna find much, is what Ryan's telling him, right? So there's that conversation in context, and the reason why he shuts it down. It's not because he's white; it's because it's a bad argument, and Michael just doesn't understand that.